For one reason or another, you've decided to embark on the exciting yet terrifying journey of selling your home. Maybe this is your very first home sale, or maybe you've done it 100 times before. Either way, it can be nerve-wracking as you try to accomplish it on a timeline that works for you while maximizing the equity in your home. And before we can talk about the net sheet or start looking for a new home together, we have to go through the documentation to make sure that this is a secure process for you. I know we're just meeting, I'm already handing you forms, but I always like to say, I'm not forcing a contract on you. I am forcing a little bit of education on you, but only because North Carolina and federal law complies that I do so. So the very first thing I'd like to do is read through this document with you verbatim, working with real estate agents' disclosure for sellers. So many times this document is completely overlooked or just sent as a document sign saying, click this, it doesn't really mean anything. But today we're going to go through it word by word. And after that, I'm going to break it down. I always promise that I'm not going to offer any commentary at first. I'm just going to read from start to finish. I usually get excited because I am passionate about real estate documentation and believe my clients understanding it will understand the process so much better. But I'm going to try my best to go through the first time with zero commentary. I am going to point out the overall structure though, because I want you to have this in hand as well so we can sign it at the end. Do not sign it. If you have a single question, just pick up the phone and call me. We'll work that out and then we'll select what agency is best for you. But here we go. Important, this form is not a contract. Signing this disclosure only means you have received it. In a real estate sales transaction, it is important that you understand whether an agent represents you. Real estate agents are required to 1, review this form with you at first substantial contact before asking for or receiving your confidential information, and 2, give you a copy of the form after you sign it. This is for your own protection. Do not share any confidential information with a real estate agent or assume that the agent is acting on your behalf until you have entered into a written agreement with the agent to represent you. Otherwise, the agent can share your confidential information with others. Note to agent, check all relationship types below that may apply to this seller. Seller's agency, listing agent. The agent who gave you this form and the agent's firm must enter into a written listing agreement with you before they begin to market your property for sale. If you sign the listing agreement, the listing firm and its agents would then represent you. The buyer would either be represented by an agent affiliated with a different real estate firm or be unrepresented. Dual agency. Dual agency will occur if your listing firm has a buyer client who wants to purchase your property. If you agree in a written agency agreement, the real estate firm and any agent with the same firm or company would be permitted to represent you and the buyer at the same time. A dual agent's loyalty would be divided between you and the buyer, but the firm and its agents must treat you and the buyer fairly and equally and cannot help you gain an advantage over the other property. Designated dual agency. If you agree in a written agency agreement, the real estate firm would represent both you and the buyer, but the firm would designate one agent to represent you and a different agent to represent the buyer. Each designated agent would be loyal only to their client. And finally, buyer agent working with an unrepresented seller, or a for sale by owner, or a FSBO, as we like to call them in the industry jargon. The agent who gave you this form will not be representing you and has no loyalty to you. The agent will represent only the buyer. Do not share any confidential information with this agent. Note to seller, for more information on an agent's duties and services, refer to North Carolina Real Estate Commission's Questions and Answers on Working with Real Estate Agents brochure at ncrec.gov, publications, Q&A brochures, or ask an agent for a copy of it. Or just scroll down in the description and click the link. And the last thing at the very bottom, which if you feel like you fully understood this, go ahead and do it now. Your name's already printed there for you, and you just need to sign and date. You'll also see my name, my license number, and my firm name. So thank you so much. We got it in under 5 minutes. I'm getting a little quicker with that. Hopefully you understood everything, but I do want to reiterate a few points along the way. And again, always feel free to reach out via phone, email, or in the comments if you have any questions at all whatsoever. So I do think the very first thing that I need to point out again, I believe it's the third time we're stating it, this form is not a contract. Signing this disclosure only means you have received it. Again, do not sign it until you do understand it. And I also like to point out in that same box, that first big square box, the last point states, do not share any confidential information with a real estate agent, or assume that that agent is acting on your behalf until you have entered into a written agent agreement with them. And so let's talk about those 4 different types of agreement we can enter. Of course, I am always going to recommend the seller agency. That is the full protection for you, having an agent who is 100% loyal to you with a ton of additional fiduciary responsibilities as well. Now, dual agency and designated dual agency are still agency. So you still have an agreement there. It has to be written that there's consent for this. But let's say, for example, we proceed with seller agency. We have an exclusive listing agreement, and I also work with a lot of buyers. So one of my buyers with a buyer agency agreement is very excited. Cameron, I love your new listing. If you both agree, I could represent both of you in that transaction. But why we're giving you this disclosure right now is because that could arise a conflict of interest. So it does clearly state here, would be permitted to represent you and the buyer at the same time. However, a dual agent's loyalty would be divided between you and the buyer. Now, kind of the 2.0 version of that is designated dual agency. So in that example, let's say you and I had signed that exclusive listing agreement in January. I met this buyer 10 days later. Since our agreement predated my relationship with the buyer, I could allow another agent with my firm or company to represent that buyer. And then both of us would have undivided loyalty, in this case, me to you, them to the buyer, but you would both be represented by the same firm. So that's what a designated dual agency agreement would look like. And the last one is a buyer agent working with an unrepresented seller, for sale by owner, or FSBO. It's not something I ever recommend. I do have some other videos on my channel kind of documenting why I don't recommend that strategy. Under certain market conditions, maybe it is worth it. And we definitely saw some of those market conditions during the pandemic and very recent history. So I think that's why we still see a lot of people with that mindset in mind. But please do check out the other videos, hit like and subscribe, and learn more about the for sale by owner process and how working with an agent really can help you. But just the point to reiterate there is the agent who gave you this form will not be representing you and has no loyalty to you. So thank you once again. We did it in under 10 minutes. If you watch that whole video, I truly believe you have a better understanding of the working with real estate agents disclosure, which is the foundation of this entire transaction. If you have any additional questions, please do reach out. There's also the entire brochure linked in the description, which offers a ton of resources directly on the North Carolina Real Estate Commission website. Thank you so much for watching, and let's get your home sold.